Snow falls thick upon the castle ramparts, and a lone guard shivers in the biting wind. How did anyone survive winters like this without any modern warmth? The answer lies not in magic, but in a simple, overlooked object, the common goose feather. By the end of this, you will understand how this humble material was the ultimate key to medieval survival. We will uncover the secret science woven into every feather and reveal why a single bed could be worth a king's ransom. What forgotten piece of history makes you wonder how people ever managed to live through it? That lone guard's warmth and the survival of millions hinged on a bird waddling through a muddy peasant farmyard. The common goose was far more than a future holiday feast. It was a walking, honking treasure chest. In a world without banks or supermarkets, a small flock of geese represented a family's living security. Their meat was a rare luxury, their eggs a welcome supplement, but their true, lasting value was something they gave willingly and repeatedly. They offered their feathers. This was not a one-time harvest. Geese were plucked alive, a careful process typically done a few times a year, often around midsummer and then again in the early autumn. This timing was no accident. It was perfectly synchronized with the bird's natural molting cycle, ensuring the goose was not harmed and would simply grow a new coat of plumage. This practice was woven into the very fabric of the rural calendar, as predictable as the sowing of seeds or the harvesting of grain. The collection of feathers became a quiet annual economic event. For a peasant family, this wasn't just about stuffing a pillow. It was about gathering a vital resource that could be sewn into winter cloaks, traded for salt or tools at the local market, or used to pay part of their rent to the local lord. A single goose could provide a handful of precious down and a bundle of sturdy feathers each year. So while the goose on the table at Christmas was a moment of celebration, the goose in the yard throughout the year was a promise of survival. Its value was not in a single meal, but in the continuous gift of insulation it provided against the relentless cold. But that bundle of collected feathers was far more than simple fluff. Its true power was hidden in a design of breathtaking complexity, a natural engineering marvel that rivaled anything crafted by human hands. If you were to take a single goose feather and look at it closely, you would see its central spine, the quill strong and flexible. From this main shaft, hundreds of delicate strands branch out to either side. These are the barbs forming the soft, flat vein of the feather. But the real magic begins when you look even closer, at a level almost too small to see. Each one of those barbs is fringed with even tinier filaments called barbules, and these barbules are not smooth. They are equipped with microscopic hooks, known as hooklets. When a goose preens its feathers, it is not just cleaning itself, it is performing a miracle of microscopic reconstruction. Using its beak, the bird zips these countless barbules together, their tiny hooklets interlocking perfectly, like a zipper made of 1,000 separate strands. This action rebuilds the feather into a solid, seamless, and airtight surface. This is the secret. When thousands of these perfectly zipped feathers are layered together, they do not form a solid mat. Instead, they create a vast three-dimensional maze of trapped air. Each tiny space between the barbs and barbules becomes a miniature pocket of still, unmoving air. Your body heat warms this trapped air, and because the air cannot circulate, the warmth has nowhere to go. The feather layer becomes a personal atmospheric bubble, a shield that holds your body heat in and keeps the biting cold out. This is the silent, invisible science that kept that medieval guard from freezing on the wall. He was not just wearing a cloak stuffed with feathers. He was wrapped in a labyrinth of still air, a fortress built from the humble goose. The quiet promise of the goose in the yard met its noisy, chaotic reality on plucking day. The farmyard would erupt into a symphony of frantic honks and flapping wings as the birds were gathered. This was not a gentle task. It required speed and coordination to carefully capture each goose without causing it distress. Once secured, the real work began, a skilled practice passed down through generations. The plucker, often a woman or a child with nimble fingers, would sit with the bird, holding it securely but calmly in their lap. The goal was to remove the feathers quickly and cleanly, minimizing any discomfort for the animal. They worked with a precise technique, grasping small handfuls of feathers and pulling firmly in the direction they grew. The sharp, short pulls created a distinct ripping sound, a background rhythm to the entire operation. The tools were simple, just skilled hands and sometimes a small, blunt knife to help with the tougher quills. This live plucking, while laborious, was reserved for the most valuable part of the harvest, the soft, fluffy down found closest to the bird's skin. This down, with its complex structure of tiny filaments and no hard quills, created the finest, most effective insulation for the lord's bed or the wealthiest merchant's winter coat. After a goose was slaughtered for its meat, a second, more thorough plucking would occur, collecting the larger, stronger contour feathers used for stuffing mattresses, arrows, and riding quills. Once collected, the feathers were not simply tossed into a sack, they were meticulously sorted. The precious down was separated from the coarse flight feathers, the small, soft plumes divided from the large, stiff ones. Each type had its own purpose and its own value, turning a messy pile into an organized treasury of warmth. This entire process, from the chaotic catch to the final sorted pile, transformed a living resource into the very fabric of medieval comfort, a testament to human ingenuity meeting nature's design. That organized pile of feathers, however, was far from ready for a bed or a coat. Fresh from the goose, these feathers were often greasy, dusty, and carried the distinct, earthy scent of the farmyard. The next step transformed this raw material into a usable luxury through a surprisingly rigorous cleaning ritual. Medieval households possessed a deep, practical understanding of hygiene when it came to their most valuable resources. They knew that unwashed feathers would clump together, lose their loft, and could even attract pests like mites, turning a precious insulator into a dirty, ineffective mess. The cleaning process began with a bath, but not in plain water. The feathers were placed into large tubs or pots and submerged in a solution of hot water mixed with lye soap. Lye, a strong alkali made from wood ash, was a common medieval cleaning agent. It was excellent at cutting through the natural oils that coated each feather, oils that helped the goose stay waterproof, but would prevent the down from fluffing properly in a quilt. Sometimes, instead of soap, the cleaner would simply use water mixed directly with wood ash, achieving a similar effect. After a thorough soaking and agitation, the dirty water was drained away, leaving behind a sodden but cleaner mass of feathers. The drying stage was a test of patience. This damp clump could not simply be left in the sun. It required gentle, consistent warmth to dry without rotting. The preferred method was to spread the feathers in a thin layer on a large cloth or a wide, shallow basket. This container was then placed near the constant, low heat of the household hearth, not too close to avoid burning, but close enough to benefit from the radiating warmth. For days, sometimes even a week, the feathers would slowly dry, with someone occasionally turning them over to ensure evenness. The final act of this transformation was all about restoring life to the material. Once completely dry, the feathers were still a bit flat and matted from their wash. To bring back their essential air-trapping loft, they were subjected to a constant, gentle beating. Using their hands or simple tools, people would fluff the feathers, tossing them in the air, breaking up any clumps and allowing each individual barb and barbule to separate. This relentless fluffing recreated the intricate, airy maze that was the secret to the feather's power. This entire laborious process, from the harsh lye bath to the patient drying and the final vigorous fluffing, was a testament to a simple truth. For medieval people, comfort was not a passive state. It was an active achievement, wrested from nature through knowledge, effort, and a profound respect for the humble goose. With the feathers cleaned, fluffed, and ready, they entered the domain of a true specialist, the bedmaker. In the cramped, sunlit corner of a workshop, these artisans performed a kind of magic, transforming loose, chaotic down into the most cherished object in a medieval household, a proper featherbed. Their tools were simple but vital: thick, heavy needles forged by the local blacksmith, strong enough to punch through layers of tough linen or canvas, and waxed linen thread drawn repeatedly across a block of beeswax to coat it. This waxing was a crucial trick of the trade, strengthening the thread and helping it slide smoothly through the fabric. But more importantly, it sealed every stitch whole as it was made. Without this wax seal, the finished bed would slowly weep a constant snowfall of tiny feathers. The heart of their craft was the creation of the tick, the large fabric sack that would hold the feathers. This was not a simple bag. A master bed maker would first cut and stitch the tick with immense care, leaving one end open. Then came the delicate work of stuffing. They did not simply shovel the precious down inside. Using a large funnel-like horn, often made from actual animal horn, they would gently guide the feathers into the sack, carefully distributing the material to avoid lumps and empty patches. Once filled, the final, most challenging seam was closed. This seam had to be perfect, a tight, strong, and utterly secure line of wax stitches that would withstand a lifetime of use. The final product was more than furniture. A well-made featherbed was a cloud, a refuge from the hard, cold world. These craftsmen and women, whose names are largely lost to history, were the unsung heroes of comfort, building warmth one painstaking stitch at a time. The sheer weight of a nobleman's bed was a testament to his wealth. Step inside a royal bedchamber, and the air itself felt different, thick and still, insulated by tapestries and the room's central marvel, the bed. This was no simple frame with a mattress. It was a towering fortress of comfort, a layered masterpiece of warmth that could reach staggering proportions. The base was not one, but multiple feather beds stacked high upon the wooden slats, each one a thick, billowing sack of the finest goose down. On top of these came the sheets of the softest linen, then a mountain of down-filled pillows, and finally the crowning glory, a coverlet so thickly stuffed with feathers it was like a heavy, warm cloud laid gently over the sleeper. These were the ancestors of our modern duvets, immense and encapsulating. To sink into such a bed was to disappear into a nest of still, warm air, a world away from the drafts that whispered through the stone corridors. This luxury was not merely about comfort. It was a silent, powerful declaration of status. The amount of feathers required for such a bed was astronomical, representing the plunder of countless flocks and the labor of dozens of hands. It was a physical manifestation of wealth you could literally sink into. Now picture the alternative. In a peasant single-room cottage, the entire family would huddle together on a low pallet, a simple cloth tick stuffed with straw or dried ferns. This scratchy, thin mat offered little barrier against the cold seeping up from the dirt floor. The straw would break down, compact, and lose what minimal insulation it provided, and it offered no defense against the damp. The same winter night that saw a lord sleeping in toasty luxury could be a life or death struggle for his poorest subject. The divide between the feathered elite and the straw-strewn poor was not just a matter of softness. It was a chasm of warmth, a tangible line between restful nights and desperate shivering, all drawn by the humble, yet powerfully divisive goose feather. This quest for warmth could not be confined to the bedroom. The same ingenious principles that created a lord's featherbed were stitched directly into the very clothes people wore, creating a first line of defense against the cold that moved with them. While the wealthy might line their cloaks and hats with precious down, the most revolutionary use of feathers in fashion was found in a garment worn by nearly every fighting man, the gambeson. Picture a simple tunic, but one stuffed not with down, but with scraps of wool or cloth and sometimes even feathers, then quilted with hundreds of close-set stitches. This was not soft luxury, it was practical armor. Worn under a heavy chainmail hauberk, the gambeson served a dual purpose. Its thick, padded layers cushioned brutal blows, preventing the metal rings from being driven into the wearer's flesh. But just as importantly, those same layers trapped body heat, creating a mobile microclimate for a soldier standing watch on a frozen battlefield. The stitching itself was the key. Those parallel lines of thread running across the fabric were not just decorative. They created a grid of pockets that kept the stuffing from shifting and bunching, ensuring the insulation was evenly distributed across the entire garment. This same quilting technology soon moved into civilian life. Wealthy merchants and nobles began wearing quilted doublets, garments that provided a sleek, fashionable layer of warmth beneath their outer robes. For them, the stuffing could be the finest goose down, making a walk through a drafty castle corridor a far more comfortable experience. So from the soldier shivering on the rampart to the lord strolling his halls, the science of trapped air was woven directly into their wardrobes. It was portable comfort, a personal fortress against the cold that you carried on your shoulders. For the vast majority of people, this layered world of feathered comfort was an impossible dream. Their reality was one of relentless scarcity, where acquiring even a single pillow's worth of down was a life's work. A peasant family might save every feather from their few geese and chickens for years, storing the small, precious bundles in a cloth sack that hung from a rafter, growing heavier with each passing season. This slow accumulation was a testament to their patience and their profound desire for a small piece of that softness. When they finally had enough, the result was rarely pure goose down. They had to be resourceful, mixing the precious goose feathers with cheaper, coarser duck feathers, or even the stiff, prickly quills from their chickens. Every available material was pressed into service. If feathers were too scarce, they would pad their sleeping pallets with whatever the land provided. They gathered wool clippings from their sheep, a material that held some warmth but could become heavy and matted with damp. They collected dried moss from the forest floor, a surprisingly effective insulator that was free for the taking, though it crumbled to dust over time and could house insects. This was the true measure of the feather's value. The Lord's bed was a statement of wealth, but the peasant's slowly filled pillow was a monument to perseverance. It represented countless small sacrifices and a deep universal human yearning for a single night of deeper, warmer sleep. The materials were humble, a patchwork of whatever was at hand, but the intention behind them was just as powerful as that in the royal bedchamber. Every stuffed sack, no matter how crude, was a small victory against the cold. This global race against the cold was fought with vastly different resources. While the goose was the champion of European insulation, other cultures mastered their own materials. In the Scandinavian north and the vast expanses of Russia, the primary defense was not a bird's feather, but an animal's pelt. Here, the brutal winters demanded something more immediate and robust than a quilted cloak. People relied on the thick, dense furs of animals like reindeer, bear, and fox. The secret to fur's incredible warmth mirrors that of feathers, but on a larger scale. Each individual hair traps a layer of air close to the skin, and a dense pelt creates a deep, resilient forest of these tiny air pockets. A reindeer skin sleeping bag or a heavy bear fur coat was a mobile shelter, a survival tool that could mean the difference between life and death during a long hunt or a journey through a blizzard. Meanwhile, in the British Isles, the answer was woven, not stuffed. Sheep were the walking treasure chests. The deep knowledge of wool processing allowed for the creation of incredibly warm, multi-layered garments. A thick wool cloak, especially one that retained some of the sheep's natural lanolin oil, could shed rain and snow, while the crimped fibers of the wool itself trapped vast amounts of insulating air. It was a breathable, resilient armor against the damp, penetrating cold. Farther south in some Mediterranean and Asian regions, a different plant-based solution emerged: cotton batting. While not as effective as down for trapping air ounce for ounce, carded cotton provided a soft, accessible layer of warmth for those who could afford it, stuffed into jackets and quilts. Each of these materials, from the layered wool of Scotland to the heavy furs of Siberia, represents a brilliant local adaptation. They were the products of environment and ingenuity, proving that the human drive for warmth was a universal force, answered not with a single secret, but with 1,000 different solutions carved from the world people knew. That invisible maze of trapped air was the true shield against winter. Think of a high-quality thermos you might use to keep a drink hot. Its secret is not just a thick wall, it is the vacuum sealed between two layers of metal, a space utterly devoid of moving air. Heat cannot travel through a vacuum, so your coffee stays warm for hours. A perfect goose down featherbed works on a remarkably similar principle. Each tiny pocket of still air trapped between the feathers, microscopic hooks and filaments, acts like a microscopic vacuum. Your body heat warms this vast collection of air pockets, and because the air is locked in place and cannot circulate, the warmth is held against you. This is why a deep featherbed feels so enveloping. You are not just lying on feathers, you are resting inside a personal climate you created, a still atmosphere that the outside cold cannot penetrate. This principle is all about loft, that fluffy cloud-like height the feathers achieve. Goose down, with its intricate web of delicate filaments and no hard central quill, creates the maximum amount of loft. It puffs up into a dense, springy cloud with countless tiny air chambers. Now compare this to a cheaper feather like one from a chicken. A chicken feather has a stiff, solid quill and simpler, coarser barbs. When stuffed into a sack, these feathers do not create a resilient, springy maze. They tend to mat down, lying flat against each other. They still trap some air, but far, far less. The difference is like comparing a brand new plush winter coat to an old, compressed one that has lost its fluff. The new coat is thick with trapped air and incredibly warm, while the old, flat one lets the cold wind bite right through. This is why a peasant's mattress, stuffed with straw or cheap feathers, offered so little protection. It had no loft. It collapsed under body weight into a thin, dense mat that could not hold a layer of warm air. The ultimate winter insulator was not the feather itself, but the perfect still space it was designed to create. A stone castle, for all its defensive power, was a spectacularly inefficient place to stay warm. Those towering walls of masonry, which deflected arrows and withstood sieges, acted like a giant heat sink, constantly drawing warmth from the very air and radiating the deep chill of the earth. Drafts whistled through arrow slits and cold seeped up from stone floors. Heating such a space with nothing but open fireplaces was a losing battle, a fight against physics itself. So medieval residents devised a brilliant strategy. Instead of trying to warm the entire cavernous great hall, they worked to create smaller, defensible pockets of warmth within it. The first line of defense was the tapestry. These were not merely decorative artworks depicting heroic hunts or biblical scenes. They were functional insulation, giant thermal blankets for the walls. Woven from thick, heavy wool, a tapestry's dense fibers trapped a significant layer of still air against the cold stone, but the wealthiest households took this a step further. They would sometimes line the back of these grand hangings with a second layer of fabric, a plain cloth that had been stuffed with feathers or wool. This created a true insulated barrier, a soft, warm wall that actively blocked the penetrating damp and chill. The second and perhaps more personal fortress was the bed itself. In a chamber where breath could fog in the air, the canopied bed became a room within a room. Heavy curtains, often made of wool or even fur-lined velvet, were drawn shut at night, enclosing the sleeper completely. Within this enclosed space, the occupant's own body heat would quickly warm the small, still atmosphere. The thick feather mattress and down-filled coverlets did the rest, trapping that precious warmth inside the curtain canopy. Stepping out of this cozy microclimate in the morning was a harsh return to reality, a reminder of the constant, ingenious war against the cold that was waged not just with fire, but with fabric and feathers. Yet this practical object was wrapped in a veil of mystery and magic. Beyond their physical warmth, feathers were thought to possess a spiritual power, connecting the owner to the bird's very nature. A feather found on the ground was never just a piece of fluff, it was an omen. The type of bird it came from told the story. Finding a hawk's feather was often seen as a sign of impending victory or a call to clear vision. An owl's feather, however, carried a more sinister reputation. Its silent flight and association with the night linked it to wisdom, but also to death and the spirit world. To bring an owl's feather into your home was to invite restless dreams or even attract spectral visitors. This belief was so strong that people would carefully select the feathers for their bedding, believing that stuffing a pillow with goose down, a bird of the homestead and farmyard, would promote peaceful, untroubled sleep. In contrast, a pillow filled with feathers from a wild, unknown bird might bring nightmares or strange visions. This is why the common goose was doubly trusted. It was not just a reliable source of physical warmth, but a spiritually safe one, a familiar creature of the domestic sphere. People even tucked single feathers like a protective sprig of rosemary into the seams of their clothing or under their mattress, hoping to ward off evil spirits or the dreaded evil eye. The feather was more than insulation, it was a personal talisman, a piece of the sky made solid, guarding the sleeper in both body and soul. This reverence for the feather was matched only by its concrete, calculable value in the marketplace. In a world where coin was often scarce, especially in rural communities, wealth was measured in tangible goods, and goose feathers became a surprisingly stable form of currency. The annual feather harvest was so predictable and so essential that it was formally integrated into the manorial economy through a practice known as feather fall. This was not an optional tribute, it was a specific legally recognized obligation for many tenants, a portion of their rent that had to be paid not in silver pennies, but in measured pounds of clean, dry goose feathers. A lord might demand 2 pounds of feathers from a family each year, a quantity that represented the careful saving and plucking of several birds. This system benefited the lord immensely as it provided a steady, renewable supply of the finest insulation for his own household, his retainers, and his guests, all without spending a single coin. But the feather trade extended far beyond feudal dues. Local markets buzzed with this specialized commerce. A peasant woman might bring a small, precious bag of down to trade for a new iron cooking pot. A farmer could use his accumulated feather stock to pay the blacksmith for repairing a plowshare. The value was well established and understood by all. This created a unique economic geography. A town situated near vast communal goose pastures, or one that lay directly on a major migratory bird route, could find itself at the center of a lucrative warmth industry. These towns became collection hubs where feathers from countless small farms were gathered, sorted, cleaned, and then sold on to merchants who would transport them to wealthy urban centers or to regions where geese were less common. The trade was so specialized that it supported its own class of middlemen, the feather merchants, who understood the subtle grades of quality, from the purest down to the coarser feathers used for stuffing arrows. Their wealth was quite literally built on the trapped warmth that everyone from serf to sovereign was desperate to own. The humble goose feather was not just a comfort, it was a commodity that could pay your rent, barter for your goods, and build the fortune of an entire town. But how can we be so certain of this world built on feathers? The proof is not buried in the ground, but preserved on parchment and canvas, waiting in the quiet halls of libraries and museums. Illuminated manuscripts, those brilliant books hand-painted by monastic scribes, offer us frozen moments of medieval life. Look closely at a scene of the Nativity, and you will often see the infant Jesus swaddled and lying upon a soft white mattress, its plump contours clearly suggesting a featherbed, a visual symbol of comfort and care. In illustrations of wealthy households, great curtained beds dominate bedchambers, their sheer size and layered covers speaking volumes about their importance. These are not generic props, they are detailed records of domestic life. The written record is even more explicit. The last will and testament of a wealthy merchant from the 14th century does not simply bequeath a bed to his heir. It meticulously itemizes it. The document might read, "I leave to my son, John, my great feather bed stuffed with goose down, together with its canopy and its 2 coverlets of wool." Such specificity in a legal document proves this was not just furniture. It was a major asset, as clearly defined and valuable as a parcel of land or a silver cup. Royal household accounts are even more revealing. They record payments for the cleaning and repairing of feather beds for visiting dignitaries, or massive orders for new feathers to replenish the royal wardrobe. One English king's inventory listed over 100 feather beds in his various castles, each one a significant capital investment. These are the hard numbers behind the soft comfort, the incontrovertible evidence that these feather-stuffed treasures were the centerpieces of medieval life, their value carefully counted, their presence proudly displayed in art, and their possessions solemnly passed down through the generations. The true measure of a feather's worth becomes devastatingly clear when placed beside its common substitute. Picture 2 sleepers on a winter's night. One rests upon a deep feather bed, a cloud of trapped warmth. The other lies on a simple pallet stuffed with straw. This was the great divide in medieval comfort, a chasm defined not by softness, but by pure physics. A straw mattress was a cruel deception. At first it might seem soft and thick, but its structure was a house of cards. With every movement, the dry, hollow stalks would crack and break. They offered no resilience, collapsing under body weight into a thin, dense mat. This compaction destroyed any loft the straw might have had, eliminating the precious air pockets that hold warmth. Within weeks, a once plump straw bed would become a hard, lumpy slab, pressing the sleeper against the cold floorboards or the frozen ground beneath. It offered no real barrier to the chill, and then came the inhabitants. Straw was a welcoming ecosystem for pests. It harbored fleas, lice, and mites, turning a place of rest into a landscape of maddening itches. The constant rustling and scratching from within the mattress were the sounds of a failed insulator. A goose feather bed, by contrast, was an investment in years of reliable warmth. Its secret was resilience. Each feather, with its complex structure of barbs and hooklets, acted like a microscopic spring. When you lay down, the feathers compressed, but they did not break. The moment you rose, the entire structure would slowly rebound, puffing back up to its original loft. This restored the intricate maze of trapped air, ready for the next night. This springiness meant the bed did not pack down over time. It maintained its thickness and its insulating properties for a decade or more, making its high initial cost a wise, long-term calculation. While a straw mattress needed to be completely emptied and refilled with fresh material every year, a feather bed required only occasional airing and fluffing to maintain its performance. The difference was not merely one of comfort, but of fundamental survival. A family sleeping on straw burned more energy just to stay warm, their bodies fighting a cold they could not escape. A family sleeping on feathers conserved that vital energy, resting in a self-warm cocoon. The higher cost of a feather bed was not a luxury tax, it was the price of a guaranteed defense against the cold, a purchase that paid for itself in deeper sleep and stronger constitutions, night after night, for years on end. That resilient, self-warming fortress of a featherbed had one major vulnerability. It was a paradise for uninvited guests. The same complex structure that trapped warm air so effectively also created a perfect habitat for tiny, biting pests. Dust mites feasted on the microscopic skin flakes that settled deep within the down, while fleas and lice found the warm, dark interior of a mattress an ideal place to live and multiply. A bed could appear pristine on the outside, a billowing cloud of comfort, while hosting a thriving ecosystem of irritation within. The fight against these invaders was a constant, essential chore for any medieval household. The primary weapon in this battle was fresh air. On any dry, sunny day, especially after a frost, you would see bedding draped over windowsills and hedges. This was not just about freshening the linens. The direct sunlight and circulating air acted as a natural disinfectant and desiccant, helping to kill pests and dry out the moisture they needed to survive. The beating of bedding with a stick was not just to fluff it. That repeated impact helped to physically dislodge and stun the tiny inhabitants. Inside the home, the arsenal was herbal. Housewives would routinely sprinkle dried, crushed lavender, mint, or rosemary between the sheets and directly into the feather tick itself. These strong-smelling herbs were the medieval equivalent of insect repellent. Their pungent oils were offensive to insects and helped to mask the human scent that attracted them, creating a fragrant barrier between the sleeper and the pests. For wealthier households, more exotic spices like cloves or nutmeg might be mixed into the stuffing, a luxurious and potent defense. This was a never-ending cycle of maintenance, a quiet war waged with sunlight, herbs, and a good, sturdy stick. The ultimate comfort of a featherbed demanded eternal vigilance, a small price to pay for a night safe from both the cold and the crawl. A soft rustling whisper followed your every turn in the night. This was the soundscape of a medieval bedchamber, the gentle, constant crinkle of a feather bed, adjusting to the weight and movement of its occupant. It was not a loud noise, but a pervasive one, the sound of thousands of individual filaments and quills sliding against one another, an audible signature of comfort that filled the dark. To sleep in a feather bed was to be accompanied by this quiet, rustling conversation, a nightly reminder of the precious, shifting material that kept the cold at bay. Now shift that sound entirely. Imagine the sharp, dry crackle of a straw pallet. Each slight shift of your body would produce a brittle crunch as hollow stalks snapped under your weight, a sound synonymous with discomfort and the slow collapse of your meager insulation. That crunch was the sound of warmth escaping, of a bed failing in its most basic duty. And then there's our modern silence. Sinking into a memory foam, mattress creates almost no sound at all, a void of auditory feedback that would have been utterly alien to a medieval sleeper. That soft rustle was more than just noise, it was proof. It was the audible evidence of a resilient, three-dimensional maze of feathers doing its job, constantly reforming its pockets of trapped air around you. To hear that sound was to know you were wrapped in a living, breathing fortress of warmth, a world away from the desperate crunch of straw or the eerie, insulating silence of the future. That soft rustle of feathers was a sound you could take with you, a whisper of home carried into the wilderness. A noble lord on a long journey did not leave his comfort behind. His warmth was a logistical operation, a caravan of comfort that followed him over rutted tracks and into foreign lands. The centerpiece of this traveling household was, without question, the feather bed. These were not left behind in drafty castles. They were carefully rolled, tightly bound with leather straps and loaded onto a dedicated wagon, forming a vital part of the lumbering luggage train that trailed behind any noble procession. This was not indulgence, it was a calculated necessity for survival and status. A king or high-ranking baron moving between his estates or traveling to court might be on the road for weeks. Sleeping on a straw pallet in a damp, unfamiliar manor house was unthinkable, a physical danger that could lead to illness. His personal feather bed was a mobile zone of safety, a known quantity of warmth that ensured he could rest and maintain his health, and therefore his authority, no matter where he laid his head. The pillows and coverlets traveled with it, each one packed into sturdy chests to protect them from the elements, For a knight on military campaign, the stakes were even higher. While a common soldier may do with his gambeson and a cloak on the cold ground, a knight's contract often specified that his lord was obligated to provide transport for his personal bedding. After a long day in the saddle, encased in heavy, chilling steel, the difference between a restorative night's sleep and a shivering, sleepless vigil could determine his effectiveness in battle the next morning. His rolled-up feather bed was as crucial as his spare sword. It was his mobile fortress against the cold, a piece of home that could be unfurled in a tent, a captured hall, or even on the wooden floor of a barn. This portable comfort created a stark, rolling hierarchy. You could see a man's importance by the size of his baggage train. A single wagon might hold the bed of a minor knight, while a duke's procession would have multiple carts groaning under the weight of feather beds for himself, his family, and his most trusted retainers. The quest for warmth was not confined by stone walls. It was a relentless pursuit that stretched across kingdoms, proving that true luxury was the power to carry your own climate with you, wherever your duties demanded you go. That portable warmth left its mark not just on baggage trains, but on our very language. The legacy of the medieval feather trade is stitched into the words we still use today. Consider the phrase, feather your nest. For us it means to accumulate wealth for a comfortable life, but its origin is brutally literal. It comes directly from the practice of birds lining their nests with soft feathers to protect their young, a behavior medieval people observed and emulated. To feather your own nest was to gather the precious down and feathers needed to insulate your home and safeguard your family against the cold. It was a direct instruction for survival, a command to build tangible, physical comfort. This phrase perfectly captures the feather's dual identity as both a symbol of wealth and a tool for survival. Even the simple word we use for the softest feathers, down, is a piece of living history. It comes to us directly from the Old Norse word dun, carried across the sea by Viking traders and settlers centuries ago. Every time we describe a cozy comforter as being filled with down, we are unknowingly speaking a word used by Norse sailors and farmers, a linguistic fossil preserved by the enduring value of the material it names. These words are hidden threads connecting us to a world where comfort was measured in handfuls of fluff, and a well-feathered nest was the ultimate achievement. That soft rustle of feathers could also carry a death sentence. The very beds that offered sanctuary from the cold became objects of pure terror during the Black Death. As the pestilence swept through towns and villages, people scrambled to understand how this invisible killer traveled. They noticed a grim pattern. Entire households would perish, one after another, often after sharing the same sleeping space. The cozy, enclosed warmth of a feather bed, with its intricate depths and shared body heat, was suddenly seen not as a comfort, but as a perfect vessel for disease. The belief took hold that the plague itself could linger in the stuffing, trapped within the same air pockets that once held warmth. The miasma, the foul air thought to cause sickness, was believed to be absorbed by the feathers and then slowly released, poisoning anyone who lay down to sleep. This led to a desperate and tragic reaction. In a frantic attempt to stop the spread, local authorities and terrified families would gather up the bedding of the dead and burn it. Imagine the sight, a pyre of luxury crackling in the town square, the smoke thick with the smell of burning down, and a fortune in warmth turning to ash. This was not a small-scale act. In major cities hit by repeated waves of the plague, the systematic destruction of contaminated bedding created a sudden, drastic shortage. The very infrastructure of comfort collapsed overnight. This tragedy forced a dark but permanent shift in hygiene practices. The market for second-hand beds, once a thriving trade for merchants who would refurbish and resell them, virtually evaporated. Who would risk buying a dead man's bed? People became intensely suspicious of any bedding not from their own household. This collective trauma ingrained a new level of caution, a reluctant understanding that the ultimate insulator could also be a final, soft prison. The story of the feather bed is not one of uninterrupted progress. It is a tale woven with both warmth and profound loss, a reminder that even our greatest comforts are never entirely safe from the shadows of history. So you decide to make your own feather pillow, a simple comfort for the long winter nights. Your journey does not begin with a needle and thread, but with a gosling. For over a year, you must raise that single bird, protecting it from foxes and illness, feeding it precious grain, or leading it to graze on common land. That goose becomes a member of your household, its honking a daily reminder of the future softness you are cultivating. When plucking day finally arrives, you face the frantic task yourself. Holding the squirming, honking bird between your knees, you work quickly, your fingers pulling small handfuls of feathers, feeling the sharp tugs and listening to the distinctive ripping sound. From one adult goose, you might gather a single, modest handful of the precious, fluffy down from its breast and a slightly larger pile of coarser body feathers. This is your entire annual harvest from that bird. To fill even a small pillow, you would need the combined feather fall of 4 or 5 geese, patiently raised and plucked over multiple seasons. Now you have a pile of raw feathers, greasy and smelling strongly of the farmyard. The cleaning ritual begins. You must draw water from the well, heat it over your fire, and mix in wood ash to create a harsh lye solution. You soak the feathers, agitating them to break up the oils, then carefully drain the filthy water. The damp, clumped mass must then be dried for days near the hearth, spread on a cloth and turned constantly to prevent rot. Only when they are bone dry can you begin the fluffing, beating the feathers by hand for hours to restore their springy loft. Finally, with the feathers ready, you turn to the tick. You barter for a scrap of tightly woven linen or canvas. With a bone needle and thread you have waxed yourself, you stitch a simple sack, leaving one end open. There is no specialized funnel, so you carefully spoon the feathers in, a handful at a time, trying to distribute them evenly. The final seam is a test of your skill, each stitch needing to be perfectly tight to prevent a constant, leaking snowstorm of feathers. After more than 2 years of daily care, seasonal labor, and meticulous craftsmanship, you hold a single lumpy pillow. Suddenly, the price of a professionally made feather bed from the market, stitched by a master with perfect materials, does not seem like a luxury at all. It seems like a bargain, a mountain of labor you no longer have to climb yourself. Centuries of technological advancement have brought us to a surprising destination, right back to the wisdom of the goose. The modern world's most advanced cold weather gear, the kind worn by mountaineers on Everest or used by Arctic explorers, relies on the very same principle perfected in medieval workshops. Unzip a state-of-the-art expedition, park or peer inside a premium Sub-Zero sleeping bag, and you will find its heart is not a complex microchip, but the same humble material, high fill power Goose down. Fill power is simply the modern scientific measure for loft, that same springy, air-trapping resilience that made a lord's feather bed so valuable. A higher fill power number means the down clusters are purer, fluffier, and can trap more still air with less weight, creating a more efficient thermal barrier with every gram. This is not a new discovery, it is the ultimate refinement of an ancient one. Medieval bed makers sorting their down from their flight feathers were the original quality controllers, intuitively understanding that the softest, most filament-rich fluff created the warmest, longest-lasting beds. Today, sophisticated machines and standardized testing measure this exact property, but the goal is identical: to maximize the amount of warming, motionless air a given volume of down can imprison. The synthetic fibers developed to mimic down still strive to replicate the goose's natural design, that intricate structure of branching filaments and microscopic hooks that create a resilient, three-dimensional maze. The medieval craftsman who stitched a wax thread through a linen tick to prevent feather leakage would instantly recognize the purpose of the modern baffle box construction in a winter jacket, those sewn through or offset chambers designed to keep the down perfectly distributed and lofted, eliminating cold spots. Our most advanced material science has in many ways been a long journey to catch up with the biological engineering of a feather. The quest for portable, personal warmth has come full circle, proving that the ultimate winter insulator was not invented in a lab, but was honed over generations in farmyards and castles, a testament to enduring genius written in threads and air. The mystery posed by that shivering guard on the castle wall finds its solution not in grand inventions, but in the intricate architecture of a single goose feather. The evidence is overwhelming. That unique microscopic structure, with its hooklets and barbules zipping together to form a labyrinth of still air, created a thermal barrier that no other common material could match. The sophisticated seasonal harvest, the laborious cleaning rituals, and the master craftsmanship of the bedmaker all point to a single, inescapable truth. This was not a casual convenience, it was a highly refined technology, developed over generations to exploit a natural marvel, Its immense economic value, used as currency to pay rents and barter for goods, and its status as a prized possession, meticulously itemized in wills and royal inventories, confirm its supreme importance. In a world defined by the cold, the goose feather stood alone. It was the ultimate winter insulator, a humble yet brilliant answer to the relentless chill of the medieval age. From the muddy farmyard to the royal bedchamber, the journey of a single goose feather reveals a profound truth about human history. Our quest for warmth was a powerful engine of innovation, turning a simple byproduct of a common bird into a currency of survival. We have walked with the peasant patiently saving feathers for a decade, and we have stood in the drafty castle hall, understanding why a lord's bed was his greatest treasure. This story is not just about comfort, it is about the brilliant, often overlooked ways our ancestors harnessed the natural world. They looked at a goose and saw more than a meal. They saw a walking insulator, a biological marvel they could cultivate, harvest, and master. This deep, practical ingenuity echoes down the centuries, reminding us that necessity is not just the mother of invention, but the architect of entire economies and the quiet, unsung hero of daily life. The next time you see a bird in flight or sink into a soft pillow, remember the immense hidden history woven into every feather. It is a testament to our enduring drive to build comfort from chaos, to find warmth in the cold, and to write our survival in threads of air and down. What forgotten piece of history makes you marvel at the ingenuity of those who came before us? Share your own historical mysteries in the comments below.